You think you know your own brother, until you walk into the room and realize you don't. My name is Caleb. I'm 31 years old, and I live in a suburb just outside of Minneapolis. I proposed to Rachel last April after 5 years together, at the lake where we first met, with a private picnic and all the old-school charm I could muster. She said yes through tears. That night, we lay under the stars on the picnic blanket, talking about what we'd name our future kids. I thought I had everything figured out. I thought I had my person. Darren, my younger brother, had always been part of that picture. He was 3 years younger, funny, charismatic, a little reckless, the kind of guy who borrowed money and forgot to pay it back, who got in over his head and charmed his way out. But I never saw him as a threat, just a lovable mess who'd one day get his act together. That was until a Friday afternoon, 3 months later. I'd flown out for a 2-day work conference in Denver. Our meetings wrapped early, and I caught an earlier flight back. Rachel wasn't expecting me. I figured I'd surprise her. I still had a key to her apartment, so I let myself in. The place was quiet. A pair of wine glasses in the sink, her shoes by the door. Then I saw it, her iPad, sitting on the kitchen counter, screen still glowing. I didn't mean to look, but the message was right there, front and center. The preview alone stopped me cold. Last night was incredible. Can't believe we've kept this secret so long. I stared at it, heart thudding. I picked up the iPad and tapped it open. The message was from Darren. It wasn't just a single drunken mistake. The thread went back months. Flirty messages, late-night meetups, references to things I thought only Rachel and I shared. The lake spot, a song we used to play in the car. Darren had even sent a photo once, shirtless in my old college hoodie. My hoodie. I felt like I was standing in someone else's life. My hands were shaking. I sat on the edge of her couch, scrolling through message after message, trying to convince myself there had to be some other explanation. But there wasn't. They had been seeing each other behind my back for 3 months. It all clicked. The nights she said she was too tired to hang out. The times Darren said he was just laying low. The weird tension I chalked up to my own paranoia. I was the one buying the ring, picking out venues, building a life. And they were doing whatever this was, just out of sight. I put the iPad down, carefully, like it might explode. I didn't yell, didn't trash the place. I just walked out, got in my car, and drove around for hours, hands locked on the steering wheel, heart hollowing out with every turn. At one point, I pulled over at a gas station and sat in the parking lot until the sun started to come up. I didn't cry. Not then. I was too stunned to cry. Too betrayed. I thought I knew my brother. I thought I knew her. Turned out I didn't know either of them at all. Betrayal stings worse when it comes with your last name attached. I didn't waste time. The next morning, I texted both of them. We need to talk. Now, Rachel showed up first. She didn't even try to deny it. She stood in the doorway of the apartment we used to share, eyes red, makeup barely hanging on, and said, "I'm sorry, Caleb. I never meant to hurt you. That was supposed to make it better." She sat on the couch like it was still hers, fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. It happened, okay? I didn't plan it. Darren saw parts of me that. No, I cut in, voice sharper than I intended. Don't spin this. You didn't trip and fall into 3 months of lies. You made choices. Every day, every text, every night. She looked down. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just stood there and said, "We're done." She nodded, then had the nerve to look relieved. Darren showed up an hour later. Didn't knock. Just walked in like it was still his house too. He couldn't even look at me. "So," he said, hands in his pockets. "Guess you saw the messages." You think. He finally met my eyes. No smirk this time. No fake charm. Just guilt. Or maybe shame. Hard to tell with him. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he mumbled. "You didn't mean to sleep with my fiancée?" He flinched. "I was going to tell you," he added, like that fixed anything. "It wasn't just about the sex. I care about her." I laughed. Loud, bitter. "You cared? That's rich. You don't get it, man. She said you never really saw her." "Oh, but you did." I stepped forward, fists clenched. "You saw your brother's future wife and decided that was fair game." He didn't answer, just stood there, looking 12 years old again. Like when he broke Dad's windshield and tried to blame me. I kicked him out. Then I called my parents. Mom tried to smooth it over. Of course she did. "Families survive worse," she said. "Love's complicated." I nearly dropped the phone. "Complicated," I said. "He was supposed to be my best man." "Well," she replied gently, "maybe this happened for a reason." That was the moment I realized she was going to excuse it. She always did with Darren. When he crashed my car in high school, I was told to forgive. When he got arrested for shoplifting at 20, I was told to help. And now this. Dad was different. He was furious. "Your brother's not stepping foot in this house again," he said. "He's out." One line. No hesitation. I moved out of the apartment that same week, packed up everything I could and dropped the keys on the counter. The ring? I couldn't throw it out. I just couldn't. I stuffed it in a box, shoved it in the back of a drawer, and slammed it shut. Darren and Rachel? They didn't even hide it anymore. Posted a picture the next month, brunch, matching smiles, like nothing happened. And me? I stopped looking, stopped checking, stopped hoping. Whatever we had, as brothers, as a couple, as a family, it was gone. Burned out, cold ashes. And no one was coming to sweep them up. How do you RSVP to a wedding you should have been the groom at? After the dust settled, I didn't know what to do with myself. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. Work. I buried myself in it. 60-hour weeks turned into 70. I skipped weekends, skipped meals, skipped sleep. Just kept my head down and kept moving. Like if I didn't stop, maybe I wouldn't have to feel anything. But the silence in my apartment was unbearable. The empty side of the bed, the toothbrush still in the holder, the coffee mug with the little chip she always used, they didn't go anywhere. They just sat there, reminders of everything that slipped through my fingers. My buddy Marcus didn't let me drown quietly. He showed up one Friday night with a six-pack and a list of insults about my lack of social life. Bro, your couch has a dent shaped like your ass. That's not healthy. I didn't even look up. I'm fine. No, you're not. You look like a guy who yells at grocery store cashiers for double bagging apples. That one made me laugh, first real one in weeks. He didn't push too hard. Just sat there, drank beer, and watched a movie with me like old times. But the next day, he texted me a therapist's name, Dr. Olson. I stared at the message for an hour before I finally called. Therapy was weird at first. Sitting in a room with neutral walls, trying to explain why I felt like I couldn't breathe half the time. I talked about Darren, about Rachel, about the iPad and the messages and the ring I couldn't bring myself to throw away. But the first time I said it out loud, I feel like a fool. I nearly broke. Dr. Olson nodded, didn't flinch. You're not a fool. You were lied to. Still, the words clung to me. Fool, joke, sucker. I tried dating. Once. A woman from work. She was sweet, kind. But after 30 minutes, she said, you seem tense. I said, yeah, that's accurate. She never texted back. Then, 5 weeks before the wedding, I got the invitation. A cream envelope with gold lettering. Addressed to me full name. No +1. Inside was a formal invite to the wedding of Darren and Rachel. I must have stared at it for 10 full minutes before I saw the handwritten note on the back. It would mean so much if you could come. It was in Rachel's handwriting. I recognized the way she curled her Y at the end. I didn't yell, didn't tear it up. I just sat down at my kitchen table and stared at it like it was a math problem I couldn't solve. They wanted me to come, to watch them get married. Like I hadn't once bought her the ring she now wore. Like I hadn't once called him my best friend before he was my brother. I called my parents. Mom said, we're hoping you'll come. For the sake of family unity. Dad didn't say anything, just sighed. I hung up. Then I called Marcus. I'm going to the wedding, I said. There was a pause. Dude, are you high? Nope. Another pause. Then you better not go looking like someone who just got dumped by a vending machine. That's when the plan started. I wasn't going to that wedding as the guy who got replaced. I was going to go as the guy they never really saw coming. I was going to stand there, head high, and let them choke on their choices. And this time, they were going to see me. All of me. You never know who's going to be your turning point until you meet them in a room you didn't want to be in. Marcus wasn't kidding. The day after I told him I was going to the wedding, he showed up at my door at 6 a.m. with a gym bag in one hand and a smoothie in the other. This, he said, thrusting the green sludge at me, is the first step in reclaiming your dignity. It smells like pond water. Drink it anyway, coward. We started hitting the gym before sunrise. Cardio, weights, even yoga on Thursdays because Marcus swore by it. I hadn't worked out consistently in years, but something about the burn felt good. Like I was building myself back up brick by brick. I shaved off the beard I'd grown during my couch-dwelling days. Got a real haircut. Bought new clothes that didn't look like I'd lost a bet. One morning, I looked in the mirror and saw someone who vaguely resembled the guy I used to be, only stronger, sharper. Then we tackled the wardrobe. Marcus dragged me to some sleek menswear store downtown. You're not going to that wedding in a rental, he said. You need a suit that says, I'm not just over it. I'm out of your league. We found a slate gray one with a subtle sheen and a crisp fit. It felt expensive. It felt right. But the suit wasn't enough. Not for this. I need someone to walk in with. I told Marcus over beers one night. Not a friend. Not some random girl. Someone who makes a statement. He nodded. You want to arrive with a woman who makes people ask questions. Exactly. He leaned back, thinking. There's a mixer at my office next week. Tech and legal departments. You're coming with me. That's where I met Hannah. She was the HR director, smart, calm, and warm in a way that didn't feel like an act. We were standing by the drinks table when she asked, "You work in tech?" "No, I'm just here as the wingman of a very pushy man with a workout obsession." She laughed. "Marcus." Guilty. We got to talking. She'd been married once, divorced 4 years ago. Said she wasn't in a rush to start over, but she wasn't closed off either. And when I told her vaguely about my brother's wedding, she raised an eyebrow. "You're going?" "Yeah, with a date. Hopefully." She smiled. "Let me guess. You want someone who makes your ex regret her life choices." I winced. "Is it that obvious?" "No," she said, "but I've been to enough office parties to know that kind of silence behind a smile." I liked her immediately. She didn't pry, didn't pity me. She just got it. The twist? She used to date Darren's best friend, back in college. Said she hadn't seen Darren in years but remembered him well. "Let's just say," she said, sipping her wine, "he peaked early. When I asked if she'd come to the wedding with me, she didn't hesitate." "Sounds like fun," she said. "Besides, I want to see the look on his face when he realizes he downgraded." We spent the next few weeks texting, meeting up for coffee, going on walks that turned into dinners. It didn't feel like a scheme. It felt like something real sneaking up on me when I wasn't looking. Marcus was thrilled. Redemption arc. Baby. And as the wedding day drew closer, I wasn't nervous anymore. I was ready. I had the suit. I had the girl. I had the story they thought they controlled. And now? Now it was mine to finish. When everyone expects you to fold, standing tall is its own kind of revenge. The rehearsal dinner was at a fancy restaurant downtown. White tablecloths, overpriced wine, the kind of place where waiters fold your napkin for you if you get up to pee. Hannah and I arrived about 20 minutes late, just enough to make an entrance without being rude. Heads turned when we walked in. Darren's face was the first one I looked for. His eyes landed on Hannah, and he froze mid-conversation, jaw clenching just slightly. I watched him blink twice like he was trying to place her. Rachel, sitting next to him in some glittery champagne-colored dress, followed his gaze. Her smile faltered when she saw me. Then she looked at Hannah, tall, confident, effortless, and I could practically hear the gears grinding in her head, like she was trying to figure out how someone like me ended up with someone like her. Good. We were seated 2 tables down, close enough to hear everything but far enough that no one had to pretend we were part of the celebration. My mom came over first. She hugged me like it had been years, like I was returning from war instead of a Target run. "Oh, honey," she whispered in my ear. "I'm so glad you came." My dad didn't do hugs, but he gave me a nod. That was all I needed. A small, silent "you've got this." The air was tight. You could feel the tension under all the forced smiles and champagne clinks. Everyone was polite, overly polite. No one mentioned the elephant in the room. No one said a word about the fact that the groom's brother had shown up with a woman who looked like she belonged in a high-end fashion spread and wasn't part of anyone's known circle. Darren avoided eye contact for the first half hour. Rachel kept sneaking glances at me, like she was waiting for something, a crack, a reaction, some kind of proof that I was still broken. I wasn't. The best man, some guy Darren played rugby with in college, stood up halfway through the meal to give a toast. He tapped his glass, cleared his throat, and started in with the usual stuff. To Darren and Rachel, 2 of the most passionate, driven people I've ever met. I could already feel it coming. The jab, the little inside joke designed to sting. Sometimes, he continued with a smirk, it takes a second try to get it right. You know, love's not always a straight line, but when it lands hard. Half the table laughed. The other half glanced at me. Hannah didn't miss a beat. She reached across the table and placed her hand on mine, just for a second. Her eyes didn't move, her smile didn't flicker. She wasn't performing, she was calming me, grounding me. And suddenly, the toast didn't matter. After the claps died down, Hannah leaned in, her voice low but clear. "That was cute." I raised an eyebrow. She sipped her wine. "If you're into emotional reruns and second-hand chemistry." I nearly snorted into my glass. Later, Darren finally came over. Not to talk, just to hover. He stood behind my chair like he was deciding whether to say something, but Hannah looked up at him with this expression like "don't try me," and he walked away. Rachel didn't say a word all night, but every time I caught her looking at me, there was something new behind her eyes. Not anger, not regret, just confusion, like she couldn't figure out how I wasn't shattered. That's when I realized something. They expected me to fall apart. They expected me to show up looking tired, sad, alone. They built this whole narrative in their heads where I was still the one nursing the wound while they played fairy tale. But I wasn't part of their story anymore. I was writing a better one. Some speeches you remember because they're powerful, others because they're pathetic. The wedding was held at some vineyard-style estate outside the city, the kind of place where everything smelled like eucalyptus and money. Rows of white chairs lined the grass, little jars of baby's breath tied with ribbon on the aisle seats. The whole thing looked like a Pinterest board come to life. Hannah and I arrived just as the ceremony was starting. We were seated 2 rows behind the immediate family, front and center in the guest view. Exactly where Darren and Rachel would see us. Perfect. I watched Darren standing at the altar, hands clasped in front of him, that old nervous foot-tapping tick still going. Rachel appeared at the top of the aisle, hair done in perfect waves, makeup flawless. She looked like she'd spent months crafting herself into this final version, the bride, the winner. But something was off. She wasn't looking at Darren. Her eyes scanned the crowd as she walked. And right when she reached the middle of the aisle, right as everyone was turning their heads to admire her dress, she looked directly at me. Not a glance, a stare. Her lips moved ever so slightly as she mouthed the word. Finally, I blinked. Was that meant to be a dig? A confession? A flex? Whatever it was, she held my gaze until she reached the front. The ceremony moved along in predictable fashion, readings, vows, the officiant making some painfully cheesy joke about a love written in the stars. I was half tuned out until Rachel started her vows. She turned to Darren and took a breath, then said, "I'm so thankful you finally saw me for who I am." Again, her eyes flicked to me as she spoke. Subtle? No. Intentional? Absolutely. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just kept my expression neutral, like I was watching strangers get married. Because in a way, I was. The reception was worse. Crammed into a tent with fairy lights and a signature cocktail called the DNR Spark, some pink monstrosity that tasted like melted mints and regret. The music was too loud, the small talk too fake, and the seating chart had been designed like a strategic landmine. Still, I smiled. I clinked glasses. I danced with Hannah during the first slow song because why not? She looked stunning that night. Midnight blue dress, hair pinned up, heels that made her almost eye level with me. Everywhere we walked, heads turned. Whispers followed. One woman actually asked Hannah if she was on TV. Then it happened. Rachel took the mic. She stood under the tent lights, glass in hand, all eyes on her. "I just want to say a few words," she began. Darren stood behind her, a little out of focus, already looking like he'd had too much champagne. "Tonight is about second chances," she said. "About finding the person who truly sees you. Darren may have loved before, and here it was, but I'm the one he gets forever." The crowd gave a polite laugh. A few murmured, "Us." I looked down at my drink. Then I heard Hannah's chair slide back. She stood up slowly, lifted her glass, and with a calm smile said just loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear, "You settled." He evolved. It was like someone hit a mute button. Rachel's face froze. A couple gasped. Someone at the next table actually spit wine. I didn't even know what to do. I just sat there, trying not to laugh, my heart pounding with adrenaline and awe. Hannah didn't sit back down right away. She gave a tiny nod, sipped her drink, then turned to me like nothing happened. Rachel blinked, lowered the mic, and stumbled through the rest of her speech. No one was really listening after that. I saw my mom smiling behind her napkin. "My dad?" He actually whispered, "Well, damn." For the rest of the night, people kept coming up to Hannah. "That was iconic. Please tell me you do public speaking. I don't know who you are, but I wish I was you." And me? I finally realized I didn't have to say anything to win. Because when someone else says it better, with grace, with class, and with just the right amount of bite, all you have to do is sit back and let the truth ring out. Loud, clear, unforgettable. Sometimes, closure isn't polite. It's a door slammed and locked. The sun had just dipped behind the trees when I stepped outside for air. The reception was winding down, half-empty glasses, a dropped napkin fluttering in the breeze, and the DJ playing that one song everyone pretends to hate but knows all the words to. I just needed a break. 5 minutes without fake smiles or subtle glances. That's when I heard the footsteps behind me. Darren. He cleared his throat, like he wasn't sure if I'd turn around. I didn't. "You're really with her?" he asked finally, voice low. "Hannah." I let the silence sit for a beat before answering. "Yeah, I am." He scoffed. "She's out of your league." I turned then, slowly, looked him right in the eye. "Maybe," I said, "but at least she didn't sleep with my brother." He flinched, just slightly, but enough. He shoved his hands into his pockets like he used to when we were kids, and he got caught lying about breaking something. "Look, man, I didn't come out here to fight." "Then what did you come out here for?" He hesitated. "I guess I thought maybe we could talk." "Talk?" I repeated. "No? After everything?" He shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't handle things right, okay? But it wasn't just a fling. I fell for her." "You fell for her?" I said, laughing bitterly. "While she was engaged to me. It wasn't like that." "No, Darren. It was exactly like that." Before he could respond, the door opened behind us. Rachel. She stepped out, dress bunched slightly in her hand, heels clacking on the stone path. Her eyes darted between us, lips parted like she wasn't sure who to talk to first. I looked at her. really looked at her. Same face. Same mouth that said yes when I proposed. Same eyes that cried when we talked about kids. She looked at me and gave a little half-smile, like she thought this might be her moment to tie it all off neatly. "You're trying too hard," she said softly. "Excuse me." She walked up, folding her arms, like we were just running into each other at a coffee shop. All this, she gestured back toward the tent, Hannah, the suit, the dramatic toast. "We both know I got the real you first." I stared at her, heartbeat suddenly slow and steady, and I said it. "No, you got the version of me that thought you were worth the effort." She blinked. Darren shifted his weight again, like he wanted to disappear into the bushes. Rachel narrowed her eyes. "Would you have taken me back if I begged?" The question came out like a challenge, like she thought she still had a card to play. But I didn't answer, not with words. I turned my back to both of them, took a deep breath of the cool night air, and walked away. Because no answer was the answer. I didn't owe them anything, not clarity, not comfort, not closure. They had made their choices, and I'd finally made mine. Healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's dinner and a spare key. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed with a message from my mom. Just one line. "They're back early. Big fight on the honeymoon." No punctuation. Just blunt and exhausted. I didn't respond. 30 minutes later, a follow-up. Rachel caught him texting his ex, same pattern. Same excuses. I stared at the screen. No anger. No satisfaction. Just confirmation. Some habits don't die. Some people don't change. I'd spent months thinking they'd won, like life was some competition. Turns out they just moved the mess to a different address. I deleted the message and blocked the number again. Not out of spite. Just maintenance. That night, Hannah cooked dinner at her place, grilled steaks, roasted potatoes, and a bottle of red wine that tasted way more expensive than anything I ever bought for myself. Her apartment was small but warm. Art on the walls. Mismatched coffee mugs. A couch you could fall asleep on without waking up sore. We ate on the couch with the TV playing some crime show in the background neither of us were really watching. She kicked off her shoes halfway through the meal. I didn't realize how tense I'd been until I noticed I was actually breathing easy. We didn't talk about the wedding. Not once. No postmortem. No recap. That chapter was done. After dinner, she got up and disappeared into the bedroom. A few seconds later, she came back holding a single silver key. She sat beside me and pressed it into my hand. "No pressure," she said, "but if you ever want to be here more than you're not." I looked at the key. Just an ordinary house key. But it felt heavier than anything I'd carried in months. Not in a bad way. In a real way. I didn't give some big speech. Didn't try to be poetic. I just nodded and said, "Okay." Later, after she'd fallen asleep beside me with her head on my chest and the TV still murmuring in the dark, I found myself smiling for no reason. That was new. My phone buzzed once more, a notification from my dad. "Darren's out of the business. Told him to grow up or get out." He chose. Another line drawn. Another door quietly closing behind me. I locked my phone, set it face down, and wrapped my arm around Hannah a little tighter. Sometimes, healing doesn't come with closure speeches or dramatic turning points. Sometimes it's just a spare key and someone who makes silence feel like peace. And for the first time in a long time, peace felt possible. Nothing tastes sweeter than knowing you've moved on while they're still chewing the bitter. A few months passed. The snow melted, spring rolled in, and life kept moving forward whether I was ready or not. Turns out, I was. My parents' wedding anniversary came up, and like always, they threw a small gathering at the house, family only, casual, just food and stories and too many versions of the same potato salad. Hannah and I pulled up together. She wore jeans and a soft green sweater, hair tied up, no pretense, just her. I was nervous for half a second, not about seeing everyone, but about how easy it felt bringing her. As soon as we walked through the door, my mom smiled like she'd been holding her breath for months. She hugged me long and tight, like she was trying to say something without saying it. My dad patted my back, then pulled me aside into the hallway. "I'm proud of how you handled all of this," he said. That caught me off guard. My dad isn't big on compliments, more of a nod and grunt kind of guy. But this time, he looked me right in the eye. "I was ready to bury Darren in the yard," he added. Dead serious. I laughed. "Still might be time for that." He just shrugged. "Yard's big." Later, Darren and Rachel showed up. Late, of course. They looked drained. Like whatever shine they tried to put on had worn off fast. Darren's hair was longer, messier. Rachel had on too much makeup, trying to cover something that wasn't on her skin. They made their rounds. When Rachel reached Hannah and me, she gave a tight smile. "Hi," she said. Hannah smiled back. "Hey." Rachel's smile didn't quite touch her eyes. She didn't say anything else. Just kept walking. I didn't say a word either. I didn't need to. I'd already said everything I needed to say by showing up, standing tall, and living better. Darren didn't even look at me. He stayed on the other side of the room the whole night, like he couldn't decide whether to be ashamed or just avoid another blow. We ate, we laughed, we talked about normal things. For once, there wasn't tension in every glance. The family seemed settled, like they'd seen the fault lines and decided not to dig deeper. On the way out, my dad hugged Hannah. "She's the one," he whispered before letting go. Hannah smiled, then looked at me like she already knew. And for the first time in years, I didn't walk away from a family event feeling smaller. I walked away taller, lighter, clearer. They saw it. Rachel saw it. Darren saw it. But most importantly, so did I. Sometimes the best revenge is simply moving on and meaning it. It was a Saturday evening, one of those perfect mid-spring nights where the air still has a chill but smells like things are starting over. Hannah and I had just finished dinner at this little Italian place near her apartment. Not fancy, not trendy, just good food and dim lights and quiet conversation. We were walking back to her place, our fingers laced together, the city buzzing faintly around us. I could feel her watching me as we reached the corner near her building. That gentle curiosity she always carried, not invasive, just there, like she was always tuned in. I stopped. She looked up. "What's that face?" I hesitated for a second, then said, "Do you want to come to something next weekend?" She raised an eyebrow. "That depends. Is it a tax seminar?" "No." I laughed. "It's this work thing. Corporate dinner. Boring food, long speeches, people pretending to care about networking." She smiled. "If you're there, I'm in." That was it. Just like that. No drama. No second-guessing. We crossed the street, and I realized something. I wasn't bringing her because I needed backup, or to prove anything to anyone. I was bringing her because I wanted her there. Because being with her wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about living in something real. It hit me how different everything felt now. A year ago, I was talking about baby names and shopping for rings. I thought I was building forever, but it wasn't forever. It was the wrong foundation with the wrong person, and worse, the wrong version of myself. Now, things were simpler. No games. No pretending. No trying to convince someone to love me the right way. Back at her apartment, we kicked off our shoes, poured 2 glasses of wine, and curled up on the couch like we'd been doing it for years. She tossed me a blanket. I tossed her the remote. She picked a show neither of us paid attention to. Halfway through the first episode, she leaned into me and whispered, "You're breathing like someone who finally exhaled." I smiled. That's exactly what it feels like. Later that night, as I locked the front door and turned off the lights, I paused in the hallway and looked around, not at the furniture or the framed photos or the plants she somehow kept alive, but at the feeling of the place. It felt like home, not because I was trying to escape something, but because I wasn't running anymore. 6 months after everything crashed, I realized I hadn't lost anything at all. I'd just been clearing space. And now? Now I was just getting started.